Hello, my name is Perez, and today I will be discussing the kinds of classroom assessments I have observed in Mrs. Frank's fourth grade class. One of the first type of assessments I want to go over is formative assessments. Formative assessments kind of work as a form of checks and balances with the students. They're not meant to be graded, they're not meant to be used against the students. It's only meant for understanding where the students are in their understanding of the lesson. It also allows us to see where a certain student needs help. If everyone understands it, we can move on, just stuff like that. So there's three main types of formative assessments in Mrs. Frank's class. One of the forms of formative assessments is the daily formative assessments. These usually take form in the multiplication fluency sheet. As you can see here, that's labeled Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So according to whatever day's on top, that's when they do that math section. And together as a class, they take a red pen and they correct them. As we see, the first two students got a completely 100% score, while the other student got a 2 out of 12 and corrected their answers with a red pen. This is kind of sort of to see the progress of the students and their math fluency skills. They also have to complete a daily math review for fourth grade. So as we can see here, there is a lot of red markings, which indicates that the student has not yet gained a good understanding of the problems shown on that worksheet, which means that can let us know where we need to maybe change focus and focus on these sort of problems more. The other form of formative assessments are not quite daily, but they do occur Monday, Wednesday, Friday, which is mostly working on phonics worksheets. As Miss Frank has explained to me that because of COVID, a lot of the students missed out on their phonics and really struggle sounding out words or reading, or honestly just reading in general. They really do struggle with reading aloud and understanding the material that they are reading. So every week they get a new passage like this, and together as a class they read this passage shown right here. They read this passage, and on the side they write the words that they believe have the long O sound or the long ah sound, kind of helping them out with sounding out. This kind of reinforces the rules of phonics that they learned before, and once they read a paragraph together, the last form of formative assessments that I have seen and observed in Mrs. Frank's class is formative assessments that lead up to a really big project. So this week we're really trying to build them up to writing their own informational essay. So here we have the source number 2, and I chose source number 2 because the first source was modeled by Miss Frank and they did together as a class, but source number 2 they had to do on their own. And here is just an example of a student highlighting what they thought was important in regards for the EQ. And they also have to create a tree map. So as we can see here, it's divided into 3 sections. And it's divided into 3 regions, which is Delta, Mountain, and Central Valley, and they have to answer the question, how did the Native Indians of California interact with their environment? So here we have 2 examples of students, and this is a great example because as we can see here, this first student doesn't have a lot of information written down, which can indicate that they aren't really understanding how to transfer over the information from the article onto their true map so they can make a good informational essay, while this other student has quite a lot of information to go off for their. Finally, I want to go over summative assessments that I've seen in Miss Frank's class. Summative assessments usually come in the form of tests, projects, or essays. These are assessments usually at the end of a unit or at the end of a lesson to let the students showcase their understanding of everything they've learned. So Miss Frank has Math Test Fridays where the students must complete a multiplication timed test, and it's on whatever number they were focusing on in their math fluency sheets. So for this week, it was the second type of summative assessment that Miss Frank does are the reading tests. These reading tests are usually done after about a couple weeks of some phonics worksheets. And as I mentioned previously, the kids are really struggling with reading in general, with reading aloud, with understanding what they're reading. So Ms. Frank gives them a passage. They're timed for a minute with the goal of reading 103 words per minute. And then the students are then scored by how many words they can read a minute. So here we can see that the student at first read 59, then read 73, then 83, then 95, which is really, really, really good. Same with this student. They went from a 53 to 59 to the final summative assessment that I've seen that Ms. Frank uses are the informational essays. These are what we use our tree maps and our articles for. So this first one is kind of how the student should be writing. It should have 3 citations with 3 explanations and a starting phrase for the topic sentence. Like in this case, it's to start. These 2 students, while they did have citing and the topic sentence, they did not explain the significance of their citations. So we're really working on that. So this is really where the kids get to show their understanding of the information that they read about, using their tree maps to inform themselves for their body paragraphs. And we're working on a body paragraph a time for each class, but usually it will all come together for an informational essay. And thank you for your time. This has been kinds of assessments that I've observed in Mrs. Frank's 4th grade class. Thank you. So now that I've gone over the types of assessments in Mrs. Frank's class, the last question I have to answer is, would I use these assessments in my own classroom? I 100% would use these types of assessments because I see the way that Ms. Frank models these assessments first in front of the classroom, and they really do provide the kids with a greater understanding, especially the phonics worksheets, because it made me so sad to see how much of the students truthfully do not know how to read. So I would really, really, really implement these in my classroom, honestly, even if I was in a 6th grade classroom, because a lot of these students do not know how to sound out words. I would also use the math fluency sheets and the daily math review for the 4th graders, because the students in the classroom have absolutely no problem with any math skills, because the math skills are reinforced constantly with these daily formative assessments. So I would